Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen. So, a long time ago after slavery, and especially back in the 90s, Black people had this little book called a Green Book, where they would alert each other which towns were safe to go to and which towns were not safe to go to, especially because of racism and the famous saying of sundown towns, where it wouldn't be safe for you as a Black person to be in that town after dark, right? So those are some of the books that helped Black people in navigation. However, what would happen if in today's world you as a Black person unknowingly walks into a place that or a city that doesn't necessarily welcome Black people, or even if they do, you as a Black person will not know that that place is racist? Thank God to today's world, we have the internet where you can be able to find people who've lived in these places and have had experiences with these places, and they can tell you as a Black person what are your chances of survival.
Right, so in today's episode, you're going to be reacting to videos of white people who are warning Black people about Long Island. Why is that? Apparently, the silent racism that Black people are experiencing, and everybody, including the white community, knows so much about these places, right? So let's watch what we prepared for you, and then we come back and talk about it. You can let us know your thoughts and opinion. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here. Let's watch.
Racism is actually pretty normal in the service industry, at least on Long Island, and I'm gonna give you a story to illustrate that. Not normal to me, but normal as in common. So I worked at this Irish pub for many years as a bartender, and when I was kind of first starting out there, like, I was still pretty green. I didn't really feel like I was established there. We had this night called Wing Night. It was on Wednesday nights. We had wing and beer deals, and it was slammed busy every single week. It was like our best money night, and we had a DJ. Like, I remember before I worked there, like, this was the reason why my friend and I got fake IDs, just so we could go to Wing Night, right? And so when I got put to work on Wing Night, I was so excited, and I started making crazy money, and I was like, this is awesome. And then slowly but surely, like, the DJ would play like pop and, today's hits and some hip hop, but not too much. And then slowly he started playing a little more hip hop, and then maybe mixing in like a little bit more rap, like over the weeks, years, whatever. And I guess apparently there were more Black customers. It's okay, buddy, we're waiting for them to call us. But I didn't really notice. I was making tons of money. And so I remember one night my manager came up and he was like, just so you know, there's no DJ tomorrow for Wing Night. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, we're not doing a DJ. And he just walks away. And I'm like, cool, thanks for the explanation. We're not gonna make as much money. So there's no DJ, obviously people aren't dancing, not making as much money, kind of sucked, whatever. A few weeks later, sit down, baby. He tells me, yeah, we're canceling Wing Night. Sit down, baby. And I'm like, why? And he's like, it's getting a little too dark. It's getting a little too dark in here. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And so he canceled it. Then worst part was he replaced it with a country music line dancing night. And these people, let alone not tipping, they didn't even order. They just came up to the bar and got fucking iced waters every 5 minutes before they went back to their little, like, country western line dancing thing. Super nice people, but not making any money from them, okay? And at a certain point, I asked one of my coworkers, because I'm pissed now, and I'm not making as much money, I'm not making any money, and I'm like, why? After however many years of this successful Wing Night, why did we get rid of it? And he tells me, it got a little too dark in here. And I'm like, can you use your words like a normal person? I don't know what that means. And he's like, there were too many Black people. It's not good for business. And he says it just so matter of fact, like I'm an idiot for not knowing it. And I was like, excuse me? Like, what did you just say? And he's like, yeah, it's pretty well known, okay? And like the restaurant industry, like, it's not good for business. And listen, yeah, this was a pretty white area, but the fact, in my mind, the fact that we're having all these Black people come in is a good thing, because it's like, look, people are coming from out of town just to be here for this night. Why are we not happy about this? And it's not like they were great customers, never an issue. Paying customers, having fun, tipping, like, no issues whatsoever. Meanwhile, these country western people aren't even buying. And I remember just being so blown away, like, why would we want to not have these Black customers that are coming from out of town, bringing their friends, buying, staying for hours, tipping the bartenders? Why would we want to replace them with these cheap country western folk who literally just come here and dance and maybe order one appetizer to split between the 50 of them. Why? And so eventually I asked the boss, and I'm like, can you tell me, like, is this true? Like, why did we get rid of wing night? And he's like, yeah, no, Sam, you had to have noticed it was getting dark in here. That's not good for business. And I was like, you know what? This is insane. And he says, like, you're new in this industry. You're going to hear this at any bar you work at, I promise you. And I thought he was just bullshitting me. And I was like, yeah, right. He's just probably a racist prick. No, every bar I ever worked at on Long Island, same thing. Same thing. If there was a DJ and black people started coming in, they would tell the DJ, oh, don't play that music. One bar I worked at in Patchogue was like, we don't sell Hennessy anymore. And I'm like, oh, why? Because it's a black drink? And they're like, yeah. So just a heads up if you're on Long Island as a bartender. And I'm sorry if you are on Long Island and you're black, because it's fucked up. And it took me years to really like understand that, like, no, this is how these people, like, this is the way it is. Ridiculous, but that's Long Island for you.
What's so disturbing to me about the racism in Long Island is not just how prevalent it is, but how there's no shame behind it. I spent the first 6.5 years of my life living in Long Island, and the racism is so crazy. It is literally segregated there, especially the school systems. I remember when I was 6 and I was going with my best friend to get our nails done, and they denied us service because of the color of her skin. Literally in 2013, a little girl is being denied service. This is not that long ago. I don't like going to Long Island very often, but I do have family there. But when I am visiting and I'm with a friend who isn't white, it's crazy because they will just get called slurs passing on the sidewalk. In broad daylight, like, these people have no shame. But what's more disturbing is how my friends don't react. I also find this so ironic because Long Island has some of the trashiest white people in the world. I mean, Plainedge is literally their spawn point. If you're gay in Long Island, you're getting called a slur too. If you're in Brooklyn or Queens and you're looking to go to the beach for a day, please stay safe. Please, please.
A lot of people don't realize how much they hate black people until they meet a black person who has the things that they thought that they were entitled to. Or at the very least, the things that they thought they would be able to get above black people. Because the only sense of worth that you have is that you thought you were better than a black person or above a black person on the hierarchy of American society. And so when a black person has a nicer house than you, or a better education than you, grew up in a better neighborhood than you did, has better clothes, has had more interesting experiences, all of a sudden, like, the anger and the rage and the jealousy starts to boil up, and you're like, what is that feeling? It's racism. It's racism.
People who grew up in Long Island truly do not see their own racism, and you really can't fault them for that because they grew up in this bubble of just solitude, of people just like them, especially in certain school districts. For example, my friend was dating this guy from Long Island. He was from Massapequa. I'm also from Long Island. The first time he met me, I told him I was also from Long Island, and he immediately assumed, he goes, oh, really, where are you from, Freeport? He immediately assumed I was from Freeport because I am a woman of color, right? I'm not from Freeport. I'm from a predominantly white neighborhood in Long Island, and I feel like this is the exact problem we have. It's how segregated the school districts are. You have a town that's 90% white, 10% black, and right next to it is a town that's 90% black, 10% white. Why is it so segregated?
So the first time I remember seeing racism as a child was in a toy store parking lot. It was the 80s and Cabbage Patch Kids, those cute dolls with the dimples and the adoption papers were all the rage, and my sister had to have one. So my mom, who was one of those moms, got tipped off by a Toys R Us employee that a truckload of Cabbage Patch Kids was to arrive the very next morning at the crack of dawn. So we get there with all these other families who had the same intel. As promised, truck pulls up, back of the truck opens, and the dolls start flying out. It becomes quickly apparent parent that in this all-white Long Island town, the dolls are all black. Now you have all these crying, screaming little white girls shouting at their parents. Quite a scene. And the three black families that were there were overjoyed, of course. And my sister, who wasn't crying, just looked at my mom like, what do we do? And my mother goes, well, you're supposed to be adopted, so it's not like she has to look like you. So with that, we left with a lesson learned and Monty Bram, the Cabbage Patch Kid.
Realize how much they hate black people until they meet a black person who has the things that they thought that they were entitled to. Or at the very least, the things that they thought they would be able to get above black people. Because the only sense of worth that you have is that you thought you were better than a black person or above a black person on the hierarchy of American society. And so when a black person has a nicer house than you, or a better education than you, grew up in a better neighborhood than you did, has better clothes, has had more interesting experiences, all of a sudden, like, the anger and the rage and the jealousy starts to boil up, and you're like, what is that feeling? It's racism. It's racism. You didn't realize it was there because you don't have a problem with black people who are your maids and your janitors and the person who takes out your trash, which are all legitimate jobs, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you meet a black person who's like a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, a businessman, businesswoman, like the people that raised me and that I grew up around, who grew up in beautiful homes and send their kids to the best schools in the city, best schools in the country, all of a sudden, the demon starts to come out and you're confused. It's because you're racist. You're racist. And you thought that your whiteness or your proximity to whiteness gave you some sense of value and some sense of meaning, because at least I'm better than a black person. At least I'm above a black person. Are you though? Really? What did your whiteness really get you? What did your proximity to whiteness get you? I'm thinking of that Gabrielle Union meme where she says,
okay, now how did your life change? Did you get the guy? Did you get the job? Is your house any bigger? Did money just magically, get put in your pocket?
No? Right. Well.
So guys, welcome back. There is a reason why they always say racism is expensive. And in today's episode, one of our speakers speaks of the fact that Long Island bars are losing a lot of money because of how racist they are, right? And one woman told us her experience of why DJs stopped playing black music, and it's because black people had started frequenting the bars in Long Island, and that is why they stopped playing music that black people would listen to or would love to listen to, right? And she explains this experience as the most money she has ever made, either through tips or sales, because of the very same black people, right? And once they cancelled black people, they stopped making as much money,
right? And guys, I feel like anywhere in the world, if you own a business, especially the restaurant business or a bar, right, it's a good thing when clients, people are walking in. It means
not only walking in but also purchasing.
It means there's something you're doing as a business entity that is attracting people, that is inviting people, and therefore giving you business, right? But as Morena said, racism is very, very expensive. Anywhere else in the world, it's a good sign when people walk in an establishment, except America, I guess, yeah? Because you tell me why a lot of a client is a client. It doesn't matter the skin color, but this is America again, yeah. Their skin color should not matter. What matters is, are they purchasing? How are they engaging with their business, with your business, right? But this person, as soon as he noticed the difference in the clientele that was walking in, he decided to go against the very thing that was working for his restaurant, yeah. But I say, probably he wasn't, keen on being different from other businesses, because if he was, he wouldn't have let or allowed little things affect his business.
Right, and the black lady who was explaining that you would not know how racist a person is, or you would not know how a white person hates a black person until that white person meets someone who is doing something as good as them, or has a better social standing than them, is when you will know just how racist they are. And I do feel like we have explained this situation a whole lot of time in this channel. And for the most part, most of these white people, really, their psychology is just because they really hate on black people, because despite the milestones they have been given by their own government and their own white supremacy to surpass black people, and and some black people still manage to catch up to them financially, I think it's what really enrages this type of white people.
Right. For people who've been raised their whole lives to believe that they were better than other people just because the supremacy system is allowing them to think that, it's quite hard for them to even fathom the fact that they can ever meet a black person who can surpass them in life. And we've seen examples of that on TikTok, where some honest white people who are at least choosing to work on the issue from within, they come forward and explain these situations where they were feeling jealous of their black coworkers because the black coworkers were far much better than them when it came to the profession they were practicing in. And it's quite understandable, So at least now there's this saying that black Americans normally like to say that especially during that time where people were talking about segregation being brought back, black Americans were unfazed, and they were saying, if that is going to be the case, that is even better for us, because at least you can put the signs back up and say black people are not allowed, and then we will know not to go to certain areas or places, And Long Island, they're not putting those signs up, but they might as well have, only that the signs are invisible, because if it's every establishment and it's a known fact, right? Only that the girl was brand new in that industry, so she didn't know what was going on there until she caught up to it. It means a lot of enough establishments do it. And personally, I would say black Americans do have a good spending power, and I wish more black American businesses could do these things that, it's just when you identify a certain market gap and you take advantage of that, I feel like you're gonna make millions out of it, right? Because the good thing about black Americans is, and this Long Island episode shows it, they're ready to support provided your product is good, right? So it would be really good if a black American could have such an establishment, so that they can provide a safe space for black Americans to enjoy, and also black Americans can support now the right business,
Right. The first time I ever heard about this place called Long Island, other than the cartoons we grew up watching, was from a reality show called Teresa Caputo. And this reality show used to air on a channel called TLC. Right? And this woman, she was a psychic of some sort, right? And she used to come from Long Island. And from that show of hers, I would see when she drives around the area was so beautiful. And it made me feel like America was such a beautiful, peaceful, and, a place where you can truly make it in life, And so hearing of such things from our speakers today, it truly does represent, or it truly does prove that a place might not truly be all that meets the eye, meaning whatever you see on TV might be a good representation of the very same side you come to hear about later in life.
Right. So guys, let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, and we'll catch you on our next episode. Thank you so much for always tuning in.